Hello and welcome to Dyson Demons. I'm Emma and today I'm going to do a review of the new fluorescent effect paints from the Army Painter. So it probably comes as no surprise to most of you that the Army Painter has just released a new range of paints and they're calling them the Fanatics paints. And 5 of those paints are effect paints that are also fluorescent. And so I went into a hobby store yesterday and asked them, what kind of fluorescent paints do you have? Because I do love my fluorescent paints and I'm always on the lookout for something new. I usually use the ones from Huge Miniatures here on this channel, but Huge Miniatures paints are really difficult to get a hold of here in Europe. So if I could find someone a little bit closer to home, that would be amazing. So they directed me to these paints from the Army Painter and I thought, you know what, why not give it a go? So I bought all 5 of them because, they're fluorescent paints, right? So what I was hoping was that they were gonna work more or less like the ones I have from Huge Miniatures because as I said, they do work really well. It's just really difficult to get them here where I live. So right off the bat, that is not what these paints are made for. So if I sound just a little bit negative, just please bear in mind that yes, I was slightly disappointed with these paints and that might not be entirely fair because I'm not sure that what I was hoping they were going to do is at all close to what the Army Painter actually wants these paints to do. So just bear that in mind while we take a look at how these paints work and what you can actually do with them. And here you can see the 5 different paints. These are a fluorescent yellow, pink, orange, blue and green. And they all have written on the side fluorescent and then the color, except for the blue, which has nothing written on the side. But I think it must be a printing error because it is fluorescent just like the rest of them. So I give all of the new paints a good shake and then I put some of it on my wet palette. And right away I can tell that these paints are nothing like the other fluorescent paints I already have because they're much thinner. They come out in a very watery consistency and they don't really have what you might call a body. And the reason why I'm doing more than just one squeeze is to make sure that it's not just because I have too much painting medium at the top of the bottle. So that's why you'll see me like do 3 small dots of paint to make sure that I'm actually getting the pigment out with the paint and not just painting medium, but it is the same consistency no matter what I do. So it is just quite watery and it's much closer to a wash than to an ordinary acrylic paint. I haven't tried the rest of the Fanatic range and I guess they are probably quite different. I think they have much more body and much more dense pigmentation would be my guess, but as I said, I haven't tried them, so I'm only in this video gonna speak about these 5 effect paints. So quite a long time ago I did a review of the fluorescent paints from Huge Miniatures and I started out by using them on a completely black surface and I thought it's a little bit unfair to fluorescent paints because usually they are, well, they don't cover that well. But I thought, to be fair, I should probably give the fluorescent paints from the Army Painter the exact same test. So that's what I did, and it's quite a thick layer I'm using here, just again to be as fair as I possibly can. And while it looks kind of okay now when they're still wet and in a thick layer, as soon as they dried, they were, you could tell that there was some kind of color pigment on top of the black base, but it faded rapidly and it was just, yeah, there wasn't anything glowing or fluorescent looking about it at all. And next to them here I'm painting with the paints from Huge Miniatures just to give you something to compare them to. And as you can probably already tell, the ones from Huge Miniatures, they are much more opaque and so they will cover much better. Again, fluorescent paints usually work better on lighter surfaces, and so painting with a fluorescent paint directly on top of black is not doing the fluorescent paints any services, but it is just to test them out and see you know, how well they will actually cover, and just try not to be too kind right from the get-go. Then to give them a better chance, I also painted with the Fanatic's effect paints on top of white. I used them more or less just like I would use a speed paint or a contrast paint, so a pretty thick layer to give them a chance to show how well they would cover on the best possible surface, which is a white surface. And I mean, they go on nice and smoothly. There's nothing wrong with painting with them, but it feels like they are. To me, it feels like they don't have a lot of pigment in them. You can especially tell here with the orange, it's very, very watery, and I haven't thinned it down at all. I'm using them straight from the pot, and I use a pretty thick layer again to make sure that I try to be as fair as I can, also to give it a chance to show what it will look like if it gets the chance to pool a little bit, and so gets a thicker layer. You can also tell with both the green and the blue, it's very, very thin. So then I thought, why not try it through an airbrush? And just a quick caveat here, I am really bad at airbrushing. So it's not just the fault of these paints if you think that doesn't look great. It's probably me. So if you're thinking something is you know, not right with the airbrushing thing, it's me. So I put on a darker undercoat of blue, green, yellow, orange, and pink. And then I tried spraying with the fluorescent paint on top of that to see if you could get a sort of nice highlighting effect from the paint. And it gave it a kind, I mean, you could see that something was happening, but not that much. Then I tried on the other side of whatever spare model I was testing this out on. And I would say if you use these paints directly on top of white through an airbrush, they look really, really nice. And they flow through the airbrush really easily. And again, I suck at airbrushing, and I can, even with the best paints, I usually clog up the airbrush, you know, 10 times in 2 minutes or something. I'm really bad at it, and I don't much like airbrushing, probably for the same reason. But these paints went through the airbrush like a dream. There is no faulting them for that. So if you really enjoy doing stuff like this with an airbrush, I think you might actually really, really love these paints, because there's no need to thin them down or anything. You can just straight in the airbrush and they'll work. But as you can tell, if you try to use them as a highlight on a darker paint color, they don't really do much. You can tell it has a slight tint of something different, but they don't really do much compared to if you spray them directly on top of white, as I tried showing here with, you know, turning the models around. A little bit is happening, but it's definitely not giving off anything I would describe as a glowing effect. Then I tried just putting a bit of white through the airbrush, and then so that I could see how it would look if you had like the darker color and then a bit of white, and then used the fluorescent paints on top of that, how that would look. Because I think a lot of people might be looking to use this like this, instead of just on top directly of like with the orange on top of, for instance, a red color. And I think this also worked really, really well. So if these are the kinds of effects you're going for through an airbrush, where you first, like, let's say, paint a darker color, then use a white or lighter color, and then the effect paint, I think you could get some results that you're going to be really, really happy with. And I tried that with all the paints, and it worked really well. Again, super, super easy paints to use through an airbrush, even though that is definitely something I'm not very skilled at. The only color where I don't think it works that well is the blue color, the Plasma Coil Glow. And I don't think that has much to do with this specific paint from the Army Painter. It's just, it doesn't look very, well, fluorescent, or like it doesn't really pop like the other neon colors do. But I think that's the nature of blue, because that is the same also, for instance, with the blue colors I have from Huge Miniatures and also others I've tried. Fluorescent blue just tends to look a little bit more like a pale pastel blue than a fluorescent color that is just, you know, bam, really bright. So it has nothing to do with this particular color. That's just the nature, I think, of fluorescent blue. Then I tried, just for good measure, to see if these colors would at all work for the highlighting cross-hatching technique I usually do with the other fluorescent paints I use from Huge Miniatures. And I mean, there is paint actually on the pink right now, and yeah, you can't really tell. Then I tried with the orange, and yes, well, it'll show up as long as it's still damp from the paint. It'll show up under the light, but the colors don't show at all. Then I thought I was being too unfair, so I should probably test it out, you know, as an effects paint. And so I painted a sword silver, and then just painted the tip white and used a bit of the pink paint to see if it would give the like magic sword effect that it says on the website that these paints are meant for. And yeah, it's quite decent. I think it works well. And then tried it on top of the darker silver here to see if that would work. And as expected, it honestly, it looks a little bit more like it's a, I don't know, blood effect or something. It gets quite dark, and it doesn't it doesn't look glowing at all. I honestly wasn't very surprised by this, so I had another plan in mind, and I grabbed my brightest silver color and I repainted the tip using that. Because I thought with these paints being so transparent, they would probably work well for giving a bright metal a bit of a tint. And yeah, I think it works really well for that as well. So using that as very much as an effect paint on a small piece of a miniature like the tip of a sword, I mean, I think that is exactly what it was made for, and it works really well for that. So yeah. Yeah, nice glowing tips, but you do need to be prepared to use lighter colors where you want the glow effects, because they will not show up on anything else than the brightest colors, I think. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to see what these colors look like under a UV light. And the ones on the left, the broader strips of color, are from the Army Painter, and the narrower strips to the right are the ones from Huge Miniatures. And I think you'll agree that both of them look really nice under a UV light. The ones from the Huge Miniatures range are a little bit brighter, but not by much. I think if you want to bring your models to a rave party, both of these color lines will definitely do the trick for you. So, as I said in the beginning, I was slightly biased towards these paints because I had hoped they would do something other than what they did. And to make sure that I'm being entirely fair, I just want to show you what it says about these paints on the Army Painter webpage. So it says here, the Warpaint Fanatic Effects Radiation Glow, it's just a name of one of the paints, but the description is the same, is a one-coat fluorescent paint that makes it easy to create glowing lenses, power weapons, and magical spells. And under product information, it goes on to say, the Warpaint's Fanatic Effect paints make adding effects to your miniatures easy and fun, taking your project to the next level. Specialist tools for a theme and narrative, Warpaint's Fanatic Effects range from high gloss to ultra matte, texture to radiating. Warpaint Fanatic Effects also work great when weathering or basing your miniatures. Use the Warpaint's Fanatic Effects range to add gory elements, realistic rust, or a simple glow to a lens, power weapon, or magical conjuring. And under the How to Use section it says, Warpaint Fanatic is a high-quality acrylic paint for models and miniatures. The paint features an insanely dense pigment formulation set in a premium resin base with proprietary stabilizers to ensure smooth, effortless application. The Warpaint Fanatic paints can be thinned to extreme levels while retaining pigment dispersion. So from that description, I think it's just a little bit unclear what you're actually supposed to be expecting as a customer. On the one hand, it does say that these are effect paints, but on the other hand, under both the overall description where it says it's a one-coat paint, and also under uses where it's just described like any other Fanatic paint. To me at least, it looks a little bit more like you are supposed to use them like any other type of opaque paint and not a wash. But who knows? Again, as I said, I might be a little bit biased because I had hoped that they were something different. So yeah, I think overall these paints are excellent if you want to use them on top of a light surface. So if you want to create a magical sword effect just on the tip of a sword, or if you want to use them through an airbrush, they're excellent for that. If you were hoping that you could find a fluorescent paint that you could actually use for either for making edge highlights such as the ones I often use in my videos, or if you wanted something that you would be able to glaze up from a darker color and then you could glaze it up to a lighter color, these paints are not for you. But if you are in the market for fluorescent washes that are really easy to use through an airbrush, or you just want something that is easy and pretty transparent so that it'll just cover up the exact white dot you have on a lens or something and not really mess up the rest of the paint job if it gets if you have a little bit of spillover paint, then these are just, you know, they're gonna be excellent for that. So I think if you want to buy these paints, you need to really know what you expect of them and what you want them to do, because the paints, the colors in and of themselves, there's nothing wrong with them. They are nice, bright fluorescent paints, exactly what you would expect. The pink, the yellow, the orange, and the green are all really nice colors. And as I said, with the blue, it's just the nature of fluorescent blue paints, I think. So I really hope you like this video, and if you have any thoughts about these paints, I would love to hear them as well. So if you've tried them out, or if you are gonna try them out, and if you have any ideas for different ways of using them that I didn't cover in this video, I would also like to know, because I would like to make more reviews, and I would of course always want them to be as relevant and interesting as I can possibly make them. Also, if you have a paint range of particularly fluorescent paints that you would like me to try out, let me know and I'll see what I can do. And of course, as always, before you leave, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dyson Demons over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Gwenna L, Jordan Hollands, Queen's Wolf, Double J's Terrain, Mola, Steve Eberly, Nassim Makaya, Andrew Correa, Anthony Polcastro, Bosworth the Rogue, Mando Project, Starcon85, S. Bear, Iconocicus, Elliot Philby, Cyberfossil, Cinnamon Coffee 87, Terrainery, Joshua and Anya Pavelsic, Charlie Robertson, and VT Knight 007. If you would like to join them in supporting Dyson Demons, I will leave a link to my Patreon in the show notes. If you want to stay up to date on my painting projects, you can do so over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram, where you'll find me as Dyson Demons. So as always, I hope you liked this video, guys, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, and also if you have suggestions for future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!